Okay, let's get right to it. We're going to tackle one of the single biggest questions any business owner will ever face. What's the exit plan? We're going to break down business succession not just as a transaction, but as the critical decision that defines your legacy, impacts your entire team, and ultimately puts a final number on your life's work. This is a big deal, so let's dive in.
The stakes here couldn't be higher. Putting this decision off, or worse, not planning it properly, that isn't just standing still. It's actively putting everything at risk. You could be chipping away at the value of your business, jeopardizing your employees' futures, and eroding the client trust you've spent decades building. Our goal here is to give you a clear framework to make sure that doesn't happen.
So, when you boil it all down, you're really looking at two fundamentally different paths: selling to someone inside your company or selling to an outside buyer. And they're not just different at the finish line, they're different from the very start, especially when it comes to your most valuable, non-renewable resource, time. And this right here shows you the huge difference in timing. The internal path, well, that's a marathon. We're talking about a 5 to 10 year process of decadal grooming, carefully mentoring your successor. On the flip side, an external sale is a strategic sprint, an intense 6 to 12 month push of valuation, marketing, and closing the deal. So the very first question you have to ask yourself is this: which race are you actually prepared to run? All right, now let's talk numbers. We're going to do a quick, data-driven breakdown of the costs and financial risks that come with each path. This is where the strategic choice starts to get very real, very fast. First up, let's look at the direct transaction costs. The difference is pretty stark. An internal succession might only set you back about $1,000 for the necessary legal work and documentation, but an external M&A deal, you're looking at $4,000 to $6,000 just to get in the game. And honestly, often a lot more once you factor in advisors, deep financial audits, and marketing. But here's what's really interesting: how you actually get paid. With an internal succession, you're often looking at a payout over time, funded by the company's future profits. It's a long-term play. An external sale, though, is all about immediate cash. You get a premium price, usually as a lump sum, right at closing. The catch? For that external sale, you're going to need what's called a quality of earnings report. It's a super deep dive to prove your numbers to skeptical buyers. An internal deal, on the other hand, usually just needs much simpler financial verification. And of course, you can't forget about taxes, especially here in California. An external sale means you're going to get hit with an immediate large tax bill. That includes that hefty 13.3% state capital gains tax. The internal route, however, can offer ways to soften that blow, sometimes allowing you to defer those gains and keep more of your money working for you and for the business. Now, beyond the balance sheet, the single most important non-financial goal has to preserving clients' trust. An internal transition has that stability baked right in. But for an external sale, confidentiality is everything. If word gets out before a deal is signed, you risk scaring off the very clients that make your business valuable in the first place. A rock-solid confidentiality strategy isn't just a nice-to-have, it's absolutely essential. Okay, so these concepts are great in theory, but let's see how they actually play out in the real world. We're going to look at a few high-stakes California industries where these choices can have wildly different consequences. Let's compare a manufacturing company to a medical practice. For the manufacturer, an internal successor already knows the complex machinery, the supply chains, the whole shebang. An external buyer, they have a huge learning curve, and that costs time and money. For a medical practice, it's all about patient trust. An internal handover keeps those doctor-patient relationships intact. An external sale, especially to a big corporate group, can unleash a storm of regulatory headaches around patient data and create a culture clash that absolutely impacts care. And we see a really similar story with distribution and construction firms. A distribution successor who comes from within already has those critical relationships with vendors and clients. You can bet an external buyer will be laser-focused on those contracts, looking for any weakness. Then you have a construction company, where a huge part of the business's value is its bonding capacity and licenses. An internal transfer makes that transition seamless. And an external sale, though, that involves a complicated and frankly risky transfer of both. So all of this leads us to the most important step you have to take before making any choice: a formal, brutally honest assessment of where your firm actually stands. This can't be based on a gut feeling. It has to be driven by objective analysis. And let me just put on my auditor hat for a second here. There's a critical point on valuation for any internal deal. The business must be valued based on its asset replacement value, not on some rosy projection of future earnings. This is non-negotiable. Why? Because it protects the financial health of the company and ensures you're not saddling the next generation with unsustainable debt right out of the gate. A truly solid assessment really rests on three key pillars. First, you have to honestly evaluate your leadership pipeline. Do your next generation leaders have what it takes? Really? Next, you've got to analyze the skills gap. What crucial knowledge is going to walk out the door with you, and how are you going to fill that void? And finally, you need a detailed strategic plan for the transition itself, a step-by-step roadmap no matter which path you end up choosing. In today's world, a proper readiness assessment absolutely has to include diversity, equity, and inclusion. As Andrew Rogerson points out, this isn't just about doing the right thing, it is a massive strategic advantage. When you intentionally develop talent from every possible background, you get better ideas, you avoid dangerous blind spots, and you ultimately make stronger, more resilient decisions for the company's future. All right, we've looked at the timelines, the money, the industry-specific risks, and the readiness checks. Now we move from analysis to action. Based on all this data, we can chart a clear, mandated path forward. And really, what this all boils down to is that the decision is no longer about simple preference. It's now directly tied to a formal assessment of your company's risk tolerance and its actual state of readiness. This isn't just a suggestion. It's the logical, mandated outcome of the framework we've just walked through. So for a hypothetical firm in this position, the finding is clear. The mandated path forward is an external sale. If there isn't a strong, proven internal leader ready to take the reins, and if the owners want immediate liquidity with less personal risk going forward, then the strategic sprint of an external sale is the smartest move to maximize value and ensure a clean exit. Now, if an external sale is the path, you have to move fast. The first phase is all about getting the company ready to go to market. That means immediately kicking off that quality of earnings report, building a confidential information packet for potential buyers, and starting the crucial process of identifying and vetting qualified purchasers. And there's one last practical hurdle to think about: financing. For an external buyer, getting a big business acquisition loan is a complex, rigorous process. But with an internal succession, it's often much simpler. The owner can effectively finance the deal themselves, tying their own payout to the future success of the company they built. It's a different world entirely. So, we've provided the framework, and we've shown how a conclusion is reached. But this explainer really ends with a question that only you can answer. Your entire legacy will be defined by this one final strategic decision. So, is your firm truly prepared, not just to choose a path, but to execute it with the precision it demands?